Hey, if you're listening to this, guys, we want you guys to know that we recorded this at a time of just trying to explore what we're going through at the moment. So we please ask if you're going to comment about the events that have happened and you're going to reply to people, please do it in a respectful, progressive manner in the discussion.
And we'll be
Positive.
trying to respond if we see fit, and we will certainly be doing it in a respectful manner. So we just ask that you uphold your end of the bargain and keep it respectful as well.
Definitely.
All right. Hey there, everyone. This is gonna be a different discussion than normal. I don't really know how to set this up, how to really, really way to ease into it. This doesn't really relate to any of the content we usually post, but it's definitely something that affects us personally. In recent events, there's been a shooting in North Carolina. I believe it was yesterday. Um, and since that time, riots have broke out, things of that nature. And Will is here with me, and we're about to have a discussion about on what's going on. And at the time of recording this, this is midnight Wednesday.
11:30 on
September.
September 21st.
And so we're both from Charlotte, raised there. That's where we grew up. And so
Yeah.
having these events unfold where we grew up is really strange, for sure, and it's really grounding. And so,
It's
what
I
we're
mean,
talking
I'm
about
I'm
is,
watching CNN and it's like the only times I see these buildings on TV is like during Panthers games or Hornets games or something like that. And now I'm seeing it with police lining the street.
the same way we saw Ferguson.
Yeah. And I don't. I mean, Daniel's not watching any TV. I'm watching CNN right now. But right now, there's like this group of people on like ATVs, just kind of circling the police right now. That's basically what this episode's gonna be. We're just following this as best as we can and just talking about it as it comes up. So the plan is that this is just kind of I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I can't even explain like the feeling right now, and it's just gonna be a very organic conversation, I think. Um, and we don't know where it'll go. We don't know how long it will be, but we've started recording. From the reports, it seems like the consensus is that the protesters have since left uptown Charlotte, and what's left is the antagonizers. That's what the media is reporting. Um, so that's what we're going off of. I'm going off of CNN. Daniel's trying to follow it the best he can on social media. So we may end up with kind of varying reports with different sources. But yeah, like Daniel was saying, I mean, we grew up here. We've gone uptown to do dumb stuff. Like
Like
this is
uptown is 15 minutes away from my house.
right. I mean, I can see the skyline of the city from basically 5 minutes from my house. So this is very very close to us. And when I say like I can't describe what I'm feeling right now, I've never felt something like this. It's just it. I don't want to say that with police shootings, the ones that are justified, ones that aren't justified, and everything in between. I never wanted to say like this will never happen in Charlotte, but it's
You
just
just don't
still
think about it.
right. It's
You know what I'm
strange.
saying?
Like all of these other ones that have occurred, they've been in other people's backyards, and now it's in our backyard, and it's a whole different feeling. Like you have a whole different outlook on it.
I just remember that feeling of, because I heard about the news of the actual shooting. It was right before I went to sleep yesterday, and I just remember reading it, and I was just like, I just had this like sickly type feeling after watching the footage, and also just thinking about like, man, this is in Charlotte right now,
Right.
and as the day has progressed and seeing how things have turned from what was a peaceful unity protest into this,
Right.
Is,
And I think just to kind of give more of an overview for people that aren't from Charlotte or even North Carolina, North Carolina's been in the news a lot recently for zero good reasons. For no good reasons. I mean, this week on a lighter note, we ran out of gas. Like a pipeline that supplies us blew up, so like gas is 20-30 cents more expensive. There's reports of clowns hiding in the woods trying to like lure children in. And then on a more serious note, I'm sure everyone's heard of House Bill 2 and what that has blown up into. So every time Charlotte or North Carolina, but specifically Charlotte, has been in the news in 2016, it's not been anything good. And this is just kind of, I don't know, man. It just like sums it up somehow.
it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, where I've always tried to keep this silent stance on my political views and my views about what's been happening in the news and things of that nature. But it's something about, I don't know, having it literally, like you said, in your backyard, something that's literally 10 minutes away from where my mother is sleeping.
Right.
You know, it's
That's damn, dude. That's a big part of it right there. I mean,
it's just like you really have to figure out, okay, where do you stand?
right. I mean, I just tweeted like I feel like I should be home. This is a very weird feeling to not be with your family, even though I know my house is 30 minutes minimum away from where this is happening. It's just, since this is such a familiar place, you still feel like there's an immediate threat.
Yeah, like that obligation of being to be there.
Right. And you didn't see this, but there was just, CNN just showed this. I mean, this is all live. They just showed this really powerful video of a protester and a cop just staring at each other. And while you were talking, that's what I was watching. And it was weird. It's just, they're just standing there staring at each other, but it's like, it feels like, it's like there's so much there. Like the message, it's like you take a picture of that, you know what is happening.
Like, it's one of the most disturbing things right now is seeing everyone's tweets about what's going on. Like,
Right, because you said you think you have someone there. Like,
yeah, I thought one of my friends was there, but she's not. But I saw this one tweet. Friend Lauren, she had tweeted that she worked at right in front of that hotel where the man was shot at.
oh,
It's
wow.
just like, ugh. And someone else was tweeting like, I had prom right across the street from where this happened. And all that stuff.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, where I same thing. I had prom uptown. I mean, probably on one of these streets where this is all going down. And as of now, North Carolina is in a state of emergency. So
Yeah, Pat McCoy is, he tweeted about sending the National Guard and getting all this stuff. But Pat McCoy is not, a notable man for making situations better. So this doesn't really suit in my heart.
I'll go ahead and take this opportunity because this is something that when I look at stuff like this, I try to look at it from like a systematic point of view. And in that sense, people that are making these laws and are creating the systems the way they are. So for those of you that don't know, North Carolina is ran by Governor Pat McCrory, Republican. I feel it's necessary to say Republican because I feel like he would say that too. He'd say, "Hi, I'm Pat McCrory, a Republican." He has been, I'm pretty sure this is his first term as governor, and he's down 10 to 12 points in the polls to his opponent in November. That tells you how North Carolina feels about this guy. I'll give him credit. He started this, he calls it a Carolina comeback with job growth. And statistics show jobs have been growing and pay has been going up, but every statistic in politics has another side, and the other side says those jobs that are growing are only the high-paying jobs, like not the middle-class jobs that are being created. If I'm sure you guys have heard about all these sporting events being pulled from Charlotte, the NBA All-Star Game, NCAA pulled, I think 7 or 8 events. That is because of a bill that he signed into law. House Bill 2 was introduced to the House of Representatives and signed by Governor McCrory all within 24 hours. And this is something that is very relevant to what is going on right now. I'm in a political reporting class right now, so once a week we have to write an article about, like, if we were writing for a newspaper about an event that's going on. So of course I'll write about this, so I was just trying to research on relevant bills and laws. And in June, I believe it was June, Governor McCrory signed a bill into law that police footage is no longer public record. So what does that mean? In order for police footage, body cam footage, dash cam, helicopter, or anything in between, for that to be released to the public, you have to have a court order, right? And even if the police agency wants to release the footage, even if CMPD tonight, they say, we want to release the dash cam footage of this shooting, they have to get a court order to do it. This bill between the House and the Senate of North Carolina was approved 136 votes yes to 22 votes no. 136 people, Republican and Democrat, voted yes. We need to make it harder for the public to access police footage. This even includes whoever the subject of the video is. They are not entitled to see the footage. They have to have the permission of the agency, who possibly could need the permission of a court order, or they may have their own right there, I'm not sure. But the subject of the video they are not legally entitled to view whatever video they are in. That is a bill that's going into effect October 1st. That is 10 days from now. So that's where Governor McCrory stands. And when I'm talking about looking at this from a systematic view, I mean, we're Skyping and we're doing video chat. When I said it was approved 136 to 22, Daniel, you had a visible reaction to that. And I think everyone would, to hearing that 136 people versus 22 people said yes, police footage is not public record. I see that as a problem. I think that is a huge problem. And right now CNN is showing people are starting to move onto the interstate, which is not safe for them or others. So what do you think of that police footage bill? What's your take on it?
I think one of the biggest issues is we are very reactionary for the moment when it comes to us as a society right now.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to an event like a shooting, we are very quick to want to protest and very quick to want to react and act on something. But I truly believe we need to get all the facts first.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like innocent or guilty or whatever, which is, get all the facts first before you do something, make someone into a martyr, bastardize someone, whatever you do, always get the facts first.
Definitely.
And it's just, that's a very upsetting thing, because I feel like having the footage of even of what had just happened, I feel like that can make a difference.
It make it a black and white issue. It was either police were wrong, or the subject was wrong.
It's either he came out brandishing his weapon, and the cop felt his life was in danger,
right,
and he fired.
Or the cop, he had excessive force, and he should be held accountable.
So.
And now, okay, CNN's showing right now the people on the interstate, any cars that are driving through, they're throwing things at them. And now they've stopped traffic. They're knocking on the windows of the cars. So I would imagine the people driving these cars feel very threatened right now.
Okay. You ready ready to talk about the fun part of this discussion?
Let's go ahead.
So,
We gotta talk about it sometime.
yep. So, I support the idea of what Black Lives Matter is and what they're trying to accomplish. I think it is foolish to believe that there's no such thing as racial discrimination in our society, that there are racial injustices in our society, but also we shouldn't always make that the issue, and also we should also focus on the issues of maybe it's the way police are being trained, the way they're handling themselves, conducting themselves, the way they approach or work with minorities, and vice versa. But when it gets to this point, and we have the riots, the looting, hurting innocent civilians, civilian on civilian, violence, that is not okay. And Black Lives Matter does not have figures, it does not have leaders in the community, strong pillars of the community to lead people and, really cast aside those who are taking extreme courses of action, who are not taking peaceful protests, because it only makes the situation worse and it only fuels this divide that's been ever growing. It's just upsetting because it's like, I hate that tension of anytime I hear there's a protest that, this is going to end violently.
Right.
And you feel like that's the only reason most of these reporters even show up. They're not trying to promote, sometimes I feel like they're not trying to promote, trying to capture the essence of what people are trying to get across, but more so, let's see how this is going to escalate over the course of the night.
Right.
So,
I think, just talking about the media when it comes to stuff like this, that's a very important part of it, but that's a whole nother can of worms. And I do feel like it's more important that we just talk about the issue at hand. And I agree entirely with what you're saying. I've talked about this with our friend Elijah in hours. Of course, I don't think anyone doesn't support the idea of Black Lives Matter. I think people question the methods. People question the tactics. And that's where the divide lies. And I think that's where the All Lives Matter movement comes from. You made a good point. There's no head of Black Lives Matter. There's no one that can wave their hand and the protesters listen, Certainly, I wouldn't go to the extent of saying there's no MLK of the group. I wouldn't want to say that.
No, I understand, but that is something that does come to mind.
There needs... Having a leader gives structure to a movement. Having structure to a movement gives you fuel to get your point across correctly. And this just isn't the way to do it. And not even this specifically. There's been accounts of Black Lives Matter, I guess call them chapters, on college campuses. They'll go into the library and harass all the white students that are studying. And there will be protests marching down the street, and they're chanting "Kill all cops, kill all cops." And it's the same argument with when you look at terrorists. It's like you absolutely don't want to say this is the entire movement. This person represents everything.
Those are extremists.
Right. But again, I don't want to touch on media too much, but the extreme things are what gets reported. Sometimes peaceful stuff goes under the radar. But having the leader give structure, and the structure is what I think would prevent things like this. Our city being looted and interstates being shut down and the National Guard being called in. I think that would make it more, I don't want to say inviting, implying that this needs to be a fuzzy, warm movement, because it's not a fuzzy, warm topic. But no social movement has ever succeeded without the support of the opposing side eventually. You look at the women's suffrage movement. They had to get the support of men. You look at civil rights movement. They had to get the support of whites, especially people in power. So when you have a movement that just doesn't seem inviting to other groups, it's hard to make your movement grow, and it's hard for people to empathize with your movement, or even sympathize. I don't know which one would be the best term there. But I hope I'm trying to make everything make sense. But like I said at the beginning, we're just kind of saying what we think as we think it.
Yeah, like this is off the cuff. I never expected to talk about this like this. Yeah, it's really just a time for me to like, I don't know. I feel like to really figure out where I stand with everything.
Right.
It's just like these are strange times, and I don't know. Do you want to talk about the shooting of itself, or?
I think so. I think it'd be hard to talk about the result without talking about the cause. So if you want to go ahead and explain what happened, both sides of it.
That's the thing. I don't really even know all the facts. That's why I'm like.
Okay.
That's what I feel like.
Well, I'll state.
Like I have broad strokes of like how this relates to other things that have happened, especially even this week.
Yeah.
But it's like that's the thing. We don't know that much yet.
I'll state what the family of the victim, Keith Lamont Scott, what they're saying, and what the police chief and the mayor have since said. So I'll start with the police account. So the police account is that there is, I forget what apartment complex specifically, but there was a plainclothes officer that was there, and he was serving a search warrant. So he was looking for a specific person. Important to note that because he is in plain clothes, he would not have a body cam on him. That's important. They noticed a man get out of his car with a gun in his hand, and that man was Keith Lamont Scott. And that man then got back into his car, and then got back out of his car. And at that point, when he exited for the second time, that's when the undercover cop engaged. And the term engaged does not mean shoot. The term engaged in police terms is addressed and said, what are you doing, or whatever. So that's when the undercover cop addressed Keith Lamont Scott. And Keith, he was armed with a gun, and the officer gave him commands to drop the gun, comply, follow commands. Keith Lamont Scott did not follow the commands. Sources are telling news agencies that the dashcam footage shows other cops then arrived before this. Dashcam footage shows Keith Lamont Scott moving towards the officer, and that's when the officer shot, and or he wasn't dead on sight, but he was dead when he arrived to the hospital. And immediately after shooting, they called for an ambulance and started performing CPR. That's what the police account is. The family account is that Keith Lamont Scott was sitting in his car reading a book while he waited for his son to get dropped off from school. And he got out of the car. Police mistook the book for a gun, and he said he's got a gun, and shot him. That's the account. The chief of police of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department has since said that there was a gun recovered at the scene. There was no book recovered at the scene. Now, it doesn't falsify everything the family's saying. Does not mean the family is lying. That just means there are holes. And that's another reason where footage would make this a done issue.
Yeah.
So that is what happened. Granted, we will never know precisely what happened. We were not there. No one except the people that were there will know exactly what happened. But that's what the police are reporting, and that's what the family's saying. So that's what we have to go off of.
Yeah. I don't know, because it's like you listen to the reports, and then I think about the shooting that happened earlier this week.
In Tulsa, right?
Yeah, in Tulsa, and there were conflicting reports because the police said,
right,
oh, the man was reaching for his gun and all this stuff, and that he was being resisting, he didn't have his hands up. But then the video comes out, the man has his hands up, he's moving towards the car, he confusion happens, and that's when the shot is fired.
Right.
But I mean, if you look at the footage of when the helicopter rolls by, you see his body's on the ground, and the blood is all over the windshields, but the windows are up, not down.
Right.
So how could he have gotten into the car to reach for something?
Right.
But it's so you have those moments where it's like, well, there's incongruencies, and it's just like, I need facts first before I feel like I can make a proper reaction or a proper, opinion on something. And it's like, oftentimes I feel like I'm in Cam Newton talked about this, where it's like, oftentimes you feel like, for me personally as a black man, you feel like you're in a lose-lose situation.
Where if you speak up, you'll be criticized. You don't speak up, you're criticized.
Yeah, you're criticized for not speaking up.
Right.
Because I say, well, maybe we just need to wait. I understand your anger. I understand what it's like to be profiled. I understand what it's like to have a cop eye you down when you're just walking down the street, or someone clench your purse when you enter the movie theater and sit down. I understand what that feeling is like. But my thing is, it's like, we just need to focus. We need to wait before we act. And I just think that just gets hard.
It's like, let's say the dash cam footage comes out, and sure enough, Keith Lamont Scott had a gun in his hand, was approaching the officer, was not complying. Officer followed procedure and terminated the threat. Let's say that's what the footage shows. What do these rioters do? Do they apologize? When you act like this, you burn down the city you live in. What happens when it turns out there's no wrongdoing, except unfortunately on the part of the man that was killed? That's where, like you said, just being reactionary, just making decisions that you can't come back from, even when you have more information.
Because to me it's like, well, isn't the right doing? Or maybe, okay, if you still want to pursue it, okay, then you talk about, well, did he follow the procedure correctly? But you talk about the legalities of the situation they're in and not just have this response. And it's just, I just really wish I wish we just had the groups of people just condemning and searching for people who were violating the peaceful protests. Like, we really need to crack down on this and really say that this is not okay. I was talking to my mother recently, and she brought up this example of, when Martin Luther King had, like, the boycotting the buses, she said what got people's attention was that it made a dent in the economy. It affected people's wallets. It affected people, but not in a violent way. And it got people to listen, got people to understand, and people went to the protests and things of that nature. So it was strategic and it was systematic and it had a purpose. But to me, this idea of protesting and going around marching, that's a good thing.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But there needs to be more focus for me personally, I feel like. And it doesn't take away from the situations that have happened. It should always be analyzed on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
It's a lot.
So, I think this is something that anytime I've talked about this with people, it's come up. And I feel like it'd be, I don't know, a little strange to not talk about it. But given the information you have, which is as much as I have, which is not much, at your first glance, do you feel like race played a problem, or played a factor, racial profiling played a factor into the death of Keith Lamont Scott?
It's just like, I don't know. That's the thing, I don't know how he engaged him. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how he talked to him.
Right. Right.
I don't know how he looked. I don't know if Lamont was concerned based off, because he was in plain attire. He didn't know he was an officer. I don't know what the situation was. I wasn't there.
Right.
And it's like, I understand racial bias, and I understand the long history of tension racial tension between police departments and minority groups. But it's just like I said, I have to take everything by case basis. But I don't see all of the facts yet.
Right. No, I think that's one thing I thought of today. I haven't mentioned it yet because I truthfully don't believe this is relevant, but the officer that killed Keith Lamont Scott was also black. That's something that the media has ran with. Again, to me, the problem is someone died. There's no plot. There's no storyline. Someone died.
Yeah. It's like, that's where it should start for me is, why did this person die?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But someone I thought of today is it's very possible, given the scenario of what they're saying, he got out and then back in, got out. Keith, he may have seen this dude staring him down and been like, what's up? Like, what? Am I doing something wrong? Like, why? Because he's a plainclothes officer. He doesn't look like a cop. He just looks like another dude. So he could just be like, this guy's eyeing me down. He's got a problem with me. And then get out of the car in maybe a threatening manner. Now, that's assumption. Those are my words.
Yeah, this is just us making up the scenario.
I'm just because they have not released the footage, we just have to go with assumptions and hypothesis and our best guess. Unfortunately.
Yeah. It's just a strange situation. Because it's like sometimes I really do. Yeah, it's just like it's a mix between I feel like a lot of these are racially fueled, and then people love to bring up this idea of like, people are the media is only perpetuating black deaths to cause more of a divide.
Right. Right.
And people love to quote, statistically more white people are killed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never seen someone use that statistic in a non-sarcastic asshole way.
Right.
But it's just like we're talking about a specific issue, and people feel that cops are using more aggressive tactics towards minorities.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the issue is cop training, and I think it's the way cops handle situations. And I understand, like, when you put on that uniform, you're putting your life on the line.
Right.
I completely understand that and respect that. But to me, there should always be a high sense of accountability. Because, I remember someone saying, what is the cop supposed to do if he has to think in his mind, I have to think of the checklist of all the things to say that if this is okay or not okay to pull my gun. And he's like, so that would inhibit the officer. But my thing is, think about the military. Anytime you pull that trigger, that's possibly a court hearing. That's
right.
possibly you talking to the court.
Right.
Because a single bullet can start a war. And even though it may or may not, and even though we've seen it on a certain scale, a dial-back scale, nevertheless, I think cops should be still held to an extremely high standard because you were given the utmost power in our society, and that is in policing it.
Mm-hmm.
And what the rules should be in there, not only for your safety, but also the safety of those you're supposed to be serving and protecting. What do you feel about just like the idea of like cops not condemning or like not, pointing out those who really do wrong?
Yeah. You're mirroring a lot of the things that one of my other friends said today, just with the idea of just higher standards for cops. I mean, they are the ones that tell you if you are breaking the law or not. They're the ones that are supposed to know the laws.
Right.
And then another girl I spoke to, she's a criminal justice major. I mean, she has seen specifically, if I want to become a cop, what do I have to do? And she was talking about today how the majority of it is physical focused, how your physical strength. And when you talk about training, obviously a cop needs to be able to keep up with a suspect, jump a fence, wrestle if he needs to, he or she. But but there's a whole nother mental element to it. I can't remember what YouTube channel I was watching. They were talking about another police shooting, and the host said cops, they need to be taught how to empathize. They need to be taught, if this was my son, if this was my daughter, and I saw footage of how a cop treated them, would I be content? Or did they break the law and is it justified? Or would I be furious that that cop used excessive force on my daughter or son? I think training is definitely a big part of it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert in policing. I have no experience in it. No personal interest in it for me. But just from what it looks like outside looking in, it seems like there's too much. There's not nearly enough focus on the mentality, on the whole other side of policing, knowing how to de-escalate situations without pulling out your gun. It seems like that's being looked over too much, and I think we need to go back to that, and we need to really, really emphasize to cops, your training is 50% physical and 50% mental. You gotta be able to pass all this stuff to be a cop. So holding them to a higher standard, absolutely. If they're gonna be the ones that are allowed to say you need to stop doing whatever you're doing, then I should be allowed to hold them to a higher standard. Sure as hell shouldn't catch them doing whatever I was just doing that they said is illegal. More specifically on your question with condemning them, I think that was a big plank in Bernie Sanders' platform. Any killing in cop custody initiates a Justice Department investigation. I don't know the logistics of that financially or in terms of manpower, but that certainly sounds like a good idea at the surface without knowing the ins and outs of the justice system. If I am in custody, if I'm in the backseat of their car and I have a heart attack and die, investigate it. It'll be a short investigation, but you'll know for a fact that's what happened. And if there's more to it, Justice Department, you don't have to a week after, yes, we'll get involved. You're already involved. You're right there. You're learning everything as the immediate groups learn it. You know? I think that would be a huge part. And I think the biggest part is just building relationships between your officers and your communities.
Right.
That was another part of Bernie Sanders' platform. Just make the policing forces in areas look like the areas they serve. If it's a all black area, have some black cops. It's natural, you know. You're more likely to feel comfortable at first glance if you feel like this dude knows who I am. This dude knows. And same thing, white area, have some white cops. Mix it up, but don't have it all one or all the other. I think that's a great idea, just to give this immediate sense of, okay, we're on the same same playing field. He knows me, I know him. I think it comes down to training. It comes down to accountability. It comes down to relationships and just trust with citizens and police. Getting there is a tall order. It won't be easy in the slightest, but I think it's something we should not overlook. It's something we need to begin, and we should have began it a while ago.
Yeah, it always comes back down to like politics in the end.
Right.
And it's like there needs to be things done on both sides. And it's like, I understand you're sending certain police officers to like some of the most dangerous, crime-ridden parts of town to police and things of that nature.
Right.
But there needs to be things done on both sides. And it's like, I oftentimes I think about like a lot of people want to blame minorities and want to talk about minority on minority violence and things of that nature, crime. But to a certain degree, certain people are accountable, but it's like it's a cycle in a lot of those areas, and I don't think a lot of people understand like when you're you're in that area, that's all you grow up around.
Right.
Like you were a child raised. Imagine there's a child raised up in an environment where all he knows is gang activity, and the school system is not getting the funding that it needs.
Right.
It's not getting the feedback that it needs. You know, I am watching Vice documentaries on, just like low income schools and just seeing what that's like in crime-ridden, schools in crime-ridden neighborhoods. And it's just like these people need help.
Yeah.
It's like to make a change, it starts in the mentality of the people, but also needs to start in the laws as well to give people more opportunities than just what's around them.
Right.
I think poverty plays a massive issue, a major hand of what goes on in communities. It's just there's so many factors to these discussions, and it's like, to a degree, it's like certain things I just automatically empathize with being someone who is black.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things I just automatically understand, and it's not that certain people will never understand. It's just that sometimes people don't know how to truly sympathize or empathize with someone else's situation.
Right.
And that could be a big issue as well.
Right. I think with what you're talking about, poverty playing a role in violence, I mean, if you want someone to not get involved with gangs, give them something to do. Give them a school to go to. Give them a job to work. Give them opportunity.
Give them recreational things that, give them sports.
Give them sports. Give them sports.
Give them a local YMCA or recreational center.
Yeah, just build a concrete basketball court. Something.
But it's like, but that all falls down to like, well, who do you vote for? Who's putting money where?
Right.
And it's just like, to me, politics is just like punching a brick wall in order to get to another.
It can be very disheartening. I understand. Yeah.
And it's just like, as someone who's an adult and someone who is now, is about to have an opinion in the society.
Right.
Is about to cast his vote in this election. It's a daunting thing to think about. Like trying to work towards the right choices that are going to shape the future for everyone around us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I want to be able to make a difference, not just in the art I create, which I want to be a release for people, this exploration and creativity for people, but I want to be able to make the decisions, legally and with, the way I cast my vote to help other people. And it's something.
Yeah. And when you talk about earlier how you said there's some things where you, as a black man, you just immediately understand it. And that's where someone like me, white, I don't even have to agree with you. I just have to be willing to listen. I just have to be willing to learn. And if I hear you out and I disagree, so be it. But at least I heard you out. And I think there's, again, with All Lives Matter, it's not even a legitimate argument of we do not like Black Lives Matter for this reason. I support All Lives Matter for this reason. It's almost like when you're in elementary school, like someone you hate likes the color red. I'm going to wear blue just to piss them off. It's like you're not trying to build an argument and build a rapport with the other group to meet at a middle ground. Figure it out. You're just trying to ignore.
Right.
And that's a lot of what's going on. There's too much ignoring and there's too much overlooking. There's not enough willingness to hear things that you don't think you'll like. That's where problem solving starts. You need to be willing to hear things you don't think you'll like, because you may end up liking them if you hear everything there is to be heard.
And if not liking them, at least find a way to keep moving forward.
Right.
I think that's the problem, is that we're not having discussions that are moving forward. We're having discussions that just feel so redundant,
Right.
as a society. And it's just, I want to be able to vote for someone who I feel like is moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's always been my thing with politics is I've never been able to really choose a side because it's just like one person will be one way for their base or their camp because they have to appeal to what their camp believes.
Right.
But no one's ever going there to say, you know, there are a lot of mass shootings, and I understand the right to want to hold your weapons and you want to keep your weapons. But can we look into more ways to make sure, you know, we can tighten up maybe on our laws with our guns and our licensing, and you know, work on cracking down on black market weapons. But we're not having that discussion.
Right.
There's always, hey, you can't take my guns away. Yeah.
That's where Obama he's asked Congress to approve the CDC to study gun violence, and Congress won't approve it because they feel like allowing the definitive, basically Health of America, the agency that would be able to conduct a thorough study on what gun violence truly is in America. They feel like even permitting that is giving up your Second Amendment right. They're not willing to swallow their pride and say maybe there's more to this than me. Maybe there's more to this than the guns I have that I want to keep. Maybe there are people that are being negatively impacted by my lack of action. I'm in a position of power, and I'm not acting on it because of me's instead of them's. Instead of better of the group. So that's, I totally hear what you're saying when it comes to the political side of this. It's like no one's willing to just listen, understand that both sides are right and wrong, and meet in the middle because there is a middle. But no one's willing to get to that middle because they have to keep their supporters and their donators happy.
I want to feel like we're making progress. I want to make progress. It's just like, because I got to the point thinking about things, I'm just like, well, it's either you feel like it's hopeless, or you still keep climbing, and you still keep trying to find a way.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm not the type of person who's just going to give up like that. I can't live my life thinking, you know, I did as much as I think I can do. So, yeah, well, whatever.
Right.
You know, we're all doomed anyways. I can't think like that, man. You know? I want to think about people moving forward and people's future.
The minimum I do, personally, I've always lived by the idea that if I know that every person I come across during a day, whether they're my best friend or someone I hold the door open for, if I know I have treated everyone respectfully, I have made progress. I can only hope that other people are doing the same. And I can only hope that by me doing my part, I have inspired other people to do their part as well. That's just me. That's one of 7 billion. But it's a drop in the bucket. At least the bucket's not empty at that point, you know? It's a very slow process. And unless we want a full-blown revolution, which I don't think anyone wants, we've just got to keep chipping away. We've just got to keep working.
It's just like, I feel like I can't leave this earth without, I can't leave this earth with the feeling of knowing I didn't try hard enough.
Right.
To make this world a better place and to open up venues of discussion for even the smallest group of people. Like, if this video just gets people in the comment sections just talking progressively about the issues that are at hand, to me that's a big success. To me that's a big win. Even if I never see the fruits of what comes out of that conversation in those people's lives, the fact that I got someone talking to me is something I want to do.
Yeah.
It's just because there's just so much going on, and I just feel like it doesn't have to be a stalemate.
Right. It's just personal accountability is probably the biggest part of this. You just got to do your part. Just got to make sure you're doing your part. Well, update on what CNN is showing. It seems like things are dying down a little bit. There's still this group of motorcyclists just cruising through the streets. So they're taking advantage of the cops not worrying about traffic laws right now, which is good. But in terms of any additional violence, it doesn't seem like there will be any at this point. It seems like it's relaxed a little bit. And now we just gotta wait to see how much this is going to cost us. What the taxpayers are going to be fixing.
Because that's what it's going to come down to.
People that broke this shit, it's their taxes. They're paying for it.
Yeah, that's what I never understood about riots.
They're gonna pay. They're gonna pay for that window they just smashed out.
What did your local, Walmart? What did your local dude who owns an ice cream shop have to do with this?
Right.
Like, it makes no sense. And it's just like we're the ones who are going to end up paying for it.
Right.
You're not making the situation any better.
I mean, North Carolina ain't doing that hot financially either. We're losing events left and right, dude.
And acting jobs.
We haven't even touched on that. Yeah. Producers and they do not want to be here. They don't want to work in North Carolina.
No.
I think there's 6 states that do not allow publicly funded travel to North Carolina.
Wow.
So like any politicians, they cannot use state money to travel to North Carolina for any business. Schools, that's why the NCAA pulled events. Schools that need to go to North Carolina, they're not allowed to because if they're public, they can't use state money to go to North Carolina. So there are states that do not permit the use of their money to go to our state. If that doesn't say something, if that doesn't evoke some type of response, I don't think you're looking at this the right way. And I mean that's that. From a selfish point of view, just worrying about my city specifically. I mean that's where we are. Oh, and here's Black Lives Matter graffitied on a window. Well, taxpayers are gonna have to pay to clean that off. This was weird, dude.
Really is. No, I keep thinking about it. It's just like, right before I went to bed, I pulled out my phone and I just saw Charlotte. It's just like,
Right.
I don't know, shit that's sinking.
Do you feel like it's possible that the responses to these police shootings, again, whether they're justified or not, and how now every police interaction there's people filming it, which I believe is a good thing. I believe it's good to keep your public officials accountable, but filming it while they're yelling at the officer, and accusing them of wrongdoing no matter what is happening. Do you feel, and even when you look at events like the Dallas shooting and the Philadelphia shooting where officers were targeted, do you feel like this response to officers could play a factor in making officers more on edge?
Of course it does.
So when they're confronted with a situation like this, they're going to be that much quicker to pull a trigger.
Because I feel like, I just feel like you can't look at all of these things happening. You can't look at every week a new report coming out about a shooting and that not make you feel on edge. Like, for me personally, like, I personally no longer feel comfortable around police.
Really?
And it's like I'm not doing anything wrong. I abide by the law, and that's just me going out. But I now automatically just have this instinct gut feeling like I just tense up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that's it's right and wrong at the same time because you can have the argument of like, well, that's being that instinct now is being drilled into you, but it's just like I understand, and it's just like, but when you see things like the therapist who was laying down with his hands up and got shot in the leg,
Right. I forgot about that one. There's been so many.
which
Forgot
no one
about
wants to
it.
talk about.
Right.
And that's the thing. There's so many. Anytime this comes up, and I'm talking to my friends, I go to a HBCU, historically black college, and anytime I'm talking to my friends about these things, it's like, the worst part is that we're numb to it
Right.
anytime we get the news. But going back to what I was saying before, it's just, I feel tense and I feel uneasy. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's horrible. And the fact that I have to have talks with my mother about, well, are you going out tonight? Yeah. Don't be around anybody you don't know, things like that. Be careful around police officers.
Right.
The fact that has to be put in the same sentence.
Yeah. Your mother shouldn't have to be saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, if I'm feeling that way, I can only imagine what it's like when you were an officer and every day you put on a uniform and you see the escalation grow
Right.
with what's going on. And it's like, I feel like as soon as a shooting of a black male happens, in a city, and it's like they aren't quite sure about the details, like I feel like the whole entire department is just on edge
Right.
immediately. Like, oh, we got to
Right.
send this somehow, or like we got to get ahead of this and get control of this because it can escalate so quickly. And it's just, I understand on both sides where it's like, yeah, there is a tension and it's only making things worse.
Mm-hmm.
We need people working together to find the thing. We need cops, saying, yeah, this guy did bad, this guy did wrong, no, this guy was justified, but I understand what you're saying. What can we do to make people feel more comfortable? You need to work with us, making us feel more comfortable. Yelling and screaming and being disrespectful to an officer does not help the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I do not believe in this idea of, obey or die.
Right.
He
Right.
resisted arrest. He did this. It's like, well, it's different when there's a gun involved or a weapon involved and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But resisting arrest should not be your death sentence.
Right.
You should always find a cop should be trained to find 100 different ways to handle the situation before they had to resort to pulling out their gun.
Right.
It just needs to be accountability on both sides because it's only going to make things worse.
No, I can. You talk about like being numb in a way to stuff like this. I can relate when it comes to when there's a report of like a new school shooting. What's the headline? Oh, only 3 people died. Okay, phew. There's only 3 people. It's like 1 person died. 1 person was shot.
Because I remember when I felt like it happened back to back, where it was just like what happened in Paris, and there was another event in Paris. It was just
I
like,
think.
it just felt like
No, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what the events were, but I know what you're talking about.
'Cause I remember it was the one with the truck and people just getting hit in the crowd, and then
And
last weekend
it was. Oh, I think you're talking about. I think that was in Nice, France, or Nietzsche.
Nice.
How do you pronounce it? Nice.
Yeah.
I think that was like a week after the Orlando shooting. So I think.
Yeah, at the Pulse nightclub.
I think that's what you're thinking of. But it's stuff like that where it's just like you just want to say to like lawmakers and people, it's like, awesome, we have our Second Amendment, great. Name another country where there has already been, I think I saw a statistic, there's already been 45 school shootings in 2016. Name another school or another country where there's been 10 school shootings. Name another country where there's been a school shooting. And then look at their laws. I don't think it's a coincidence when the vast majority of first world, modernized, industrialized countries, they don't suffer from this gun violence problem that we have. And there's one constant factor, It's the guns. Now, I'm not sitting here saying no guns. Take away your guns. I think you should have the right to have a handgun. If someone breaks in, you should have the right to defend yourself. But, I mean, one of the first reports of this shooting was he got out of his car and he was holding a gun. Well, North Carolina is an open carry state. You're allowed to have a gun, holstered or whatever. So just from a cop's point of view, how do you tell the difference between this dude is a threat or he's just exercising his right? So at what point are we just showing off our Second Amendment to the world? And at what point are we putting police lives in danger? Just because Second Amendment can't take our rights away. You've got to let us holster our weapons, show it off to everyone, let people know we have it, just because we can.
Yeah, dog. I need to bring my rifle into Chili's, dog.
You gotta show off. You gotta
let them know you got that new M6 carbine, fam.
Instead of flexing, you just strap. You just roll up with your Barrett 50 cal.
I don't know. I feel like this is like the sign that we need to start a social podcast and talk about social issues.
This is something that's really, really interesting to me, and I think we have a really good dynamic, other than the obvious reason. But I think just
what do you mean?
But just the fact that we've known each other for so long, and I think we both respect each other on an intellectual level.
Definitely.
I think that's where, when we're talking about being willing to listen, even if you disagree, I think we're at that point,
Right.
which would enable conversations like that. I think we've talked about what there needs to be talked about. I mean,
yeah, because I was about to check Twitter, see the updates or anything like that.
I'm sure when we wake up tomorrow, there will be something big that happened while we slept. But yeah, just based off CNN's live feed, it seems like people have cleared out of the city. It's mostly just police at this point.
I feel like I'm like scouring Twitter for people I know to see them say something like stupid as hell, so I can just unfollow them. And I'm like, there's nothing more better than like, followed you for 3 years, no more.
Justified unfollowing.
You show your true colors. It's a white hood with holes. All seriousness, I think this will be really interesting because it's like I've seen people comment on this thing that people I've known for years but never have known their opinion on certain subjects.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see what hopefully positive conversations this really opens up.
Right. I guess we should just go ahead, upload this as soon as possible. I'm not really worried about any type of schedule.
Yeah.
Just because this is so topical.
Okay. Do you want to post this like just like right after midnight as soon as possible?
Yeah.
Or right? Yeah.
Well,
ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening,
yeah.
you know when we posted this.
I pre-ordered Mafia 3 today.
Oh, that's nice. I gotta do this.
I finally traded in fucking No Man's Sky.
What'd you get, like $10?
Nah, it was got my receipt right here, boy. It was 20% extra when you traded towards Mafia 3, so I got let's see. I got $16.90 altogether with my power up card bonus and the 20% bonus.
That's what my friend Peter got, $16.
For a
$60
fucking
game.
$60 game
$60
that I played for 10 hours. I'm auditioning for. I guess we'll just go ahead and put this in the podcast. I'm auditioning for the TV network on campus is starting a video game show. So I'm auditioning for that, the writing and the talent side. So tomorrow I have to turn in 2 scripts And then Friday I have to go in and like read off a teleprompter and also perform a script that I wrote myself. So you can bet your ass I wrote about No Man's Sky and how I can't remember his name right now, but one of the heads of PlayStation recently, he said, "Yeah, maybe we didn't handle the advertising very well in that game."
Yeah, Shuhei Yoshida. He's such a nice guy. He shouldn't have commented, but he's
I know.
such a nice guy.
He was like, "Oh, I mean, of course I liked the game, but maybe we fucked up." Maybe.
Maybe.
So you are sure as hell I'm right about that.
Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank
in your
you.
endeavors, Mr. G4. Not that you will ensue the same fate, but just
Just
to populate,
turn into the Cops Rerun channel.
honestly. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this Untitled event, video special, whatever this
Whatever
is.
it is, yeah.
We'll figure out, but yeah, this is just something we just had to put out there to just clear our thoughts about what was going on.
And if you're still listening, we want you to respond. We would love for you to give us your opinion. If it differs from us, we would want your opinion even more. Just please try to get some dialogue going in the comments. And if you're responding to someone else, keep it respectful. I think Daniel and I showed how to have a good conversation.
Hold on, let's say something right now, but we're gonna copy and paste for the beginning.
Hey, if you're listening to this, guys, we want you guys to know that we recorded this at a time of just trying to explore what we're going through at the moment. So we please ask if you're going to comment about the events that have happened and you're going to reply to people, please do it in a respectful, progressive manner in the discussion.
And we'll be trying to respond if we see fit, and we will certainly be doing it in a respectful manner. So we just ask that you uphold your end of the bargain and keep it respectful as well.
Definitely. Enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
Yeah. See, now when people listen to this very moment, it's going to be like Inception. Like when you get the plot twist, you're like, everything came full circle.
This episode never ends, dude. We never have to record again.
Dude, it's going to be a loop. I'm actually going to loop this for 8 hours. That's what's going to happen. Well, yeah. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Not really, man. I just appreciate talking to you.
Definitely.
When weird shit like this is going on, I think the best way to figure out how you feel about it is just to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Try to talk about it with someone that has a different point of view, who's coming from a different place. And just anytime something like this happens, I always say just learn. Just learn.
Mm-hmm.
Take it in and learn from it. For good, for better and for worse, just learn from it. Better yourself as a human being and just learn.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys for listening to what we've been discussing. We really appreciate all your support. I'm not gonna ask you to leave a like and subscribe. You're terrible.
We're not gonna say no, but we're not gonna ask you to either.
But yeah, guys, really want to hear your thoughts on this. And remember, positive discussion is the only way that we change the world. It's one discussion at a time.
Absolutely.
That's really how it happens. So, guys, really hope you have a good night. Take care, and look forward to talking to you all again.
Good shit.